Hi, my name is David Campbell with Property Services of Atlanta. Property Services of Atlanta has been around since 1995. I'm the broker. I formed the company. Basically have over 30 plus years of experience doing property management and working with investors and investment properties. Owner, investor, very active myself. So we're here to answer a lot of questions and some questions that you may ask and maybe some questions that you probably wouldn't ask at all or not even think about. So today we're just basically going to go over some few Q&As and go from there. Thanks for joining. Most importantly, every state is different and you have to understand law. You've got to know what you're talking about. Um, First thing you need to have in place is a really good lease. I mean, it's so important to have a good property management company that has good documentation. And when I say documentation, I mean the legal forms. When they sit down and sign a lease and saying, okay, my lease starts this date, ends this date, my rent is due on this date, it is late on that date, you need to follow those leads, that lease specifically, because you're wanting the tenant to follow it specifically. That also means that you have to follow that lease specifically. So for us, our leases are written very well. We've had several attorneys. We basically use our own lease. We don't use a GAR form, which is a real estate written for the state. We actually basically had our own leases done by our attorneys that basically create more of a bite, so that I can hold tenants more responsible. And so that's kind of the first process that we do. So rent is due on the 1st. Let's say they're late on the 3rd. You have to give proper notification. Hey, you know what? You haven't paid your rent. So we start making the phone calls and let the tenants know we haven't received your rent. And at the same time, we're sending two things out. One is basically what's called a pay or quit. Is saying that it's a demand letter. You need to pay your rent or you need to vacate the premises. And then we basically will send that out via email and also a hard copy in the mail. They receive that, and that's the first start, to get the eviction process started. If you failed to do that, you can't file the eviction with the magistrate court. So after that timeline is up, those 3 days have passed, they still haven't paid your rent, then what do? Now you have to do basically file a dispossessory with the court. You go down to the magistrate court or you have a company, whichever. We actually utilize a company for this, but we file the dispossessory with the courts, and all court systems are taking longer and longer with dispossessories. So when your lease says your rent is due on the 1st and you're late on the 3rd, literally by the 10th, 12th of the month, you want to be ready to file an eviction, because you can't be friendly. You have to treat it as a business and understand investing in the properties is a business. We get our hearts involved into it, and a lot of times when we get our hearts involved into it, we're the ones that get hurt, because we kind of give them the better doubt and think, oh well, I'll pay this on this date or whatever, and then that date comes and it doesn't happen. So I've always learned in the 30 years that we've been doing this is just basically stick to the policy, stick to the rules, and just go with it. And if they can pay, don't worry, they'll pay and you won't have a problem. But just stick to the timelines. So it gets into the courts, and the courts basically notifies the tenant that, hey, you're being evicted. You can file an answer to this, or you can come to court, or we can basically do what's called a writ of possession. So let's just say in this case, they decide to come to court. If they go to court, you need to have representation there, either by an attorney, the management company, or even yourself, but you really need to know what you're doing. So it's important to use a professional, so it's not a guessing game. If it's just for non-payments, most judges will basically, it's going to be waste of time. They're going to say, hey, have you paid your rent? You're like, no. It says, when are you going to pay your rent? Well, when I get my next paycheck. Next thing they're going to do is give what's called a writ of possession. You have 7 days to get out of that property or make good on that rent, and if not, you move forward. So let's say the judge is over, the court closes out, you get what's called a writ of possession, and it's waiting for you to pick up. What will happen, let's say that they do not pay the rent, then that writ of possession has to be picked up by a sheriff in Atlanta. Is you have to basically have the sheriff department deliver that writ of possession, And basically, when that gets served, that is at the time that, okay, you've got 7 days to get out. The seventh day, we're there knocking on your door. The sheriff department is there. And if you're not out, unfortunately, they are forcibly going to kick you out. So it's really not the place that you want to be involved in. It's obviously it can get quite nasty, but most of the time people have already moved out because they know that this is coming and they don't want to have to face the sheriff at the door, and all of a sudden you got a team of 20 people coming in and you have 1 hour to get all their belongings out of the house and up to the curb. So that's the way it works here in Atlanta and the state of Georgia. But it's a process. You have to know the process. You have to do it right. If it's kicked out of court, you have to go back all over and start over again. So all of a sudden, you've wasted a month through the eviction process. You did it wrong. Now you're back out from square one, and you're starting the whole process out. So you want to make sure that you're doing this right. I hope that's some helpful information for you on an eviction process. You need to keep the professionals doing these kind of things and keep yourself in a safe position, and don't take it on yourself. But it is definitely can get nasty, and it's like I said, keep it structured as a business. Understand that you're not being the bad guy. Any person that's ever been evicted, they created themselves, and we're just basically following the process. And that's some of our lovely things that we get to do as a property management company. I hope that's a good answer for you. Have any more? Let me know. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch our video today. If you have any questions, you can always visit our website at psatlanta.com or call us anytime, 770-426-1150. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.